everyone, and welcome back. I have officially finished reading the first book in the series, The Red Queen, and can I tell you, I am shook. So first off, I'm going to give just a general rating of this book. I would give this probably a 4.5 out of 5. It was really good, but you know, those 5 out of 5s, they have to be for the best books that really mean something to me, that I really enjoy and can't forget. So I'm going to save and hold out on the 5. Hopefully, maybe when the rest of the series, when I read the other books, comes together, maybe that'll make the whole series in general a 5 out of 5. But right now, this book, I'm just going to give this book a 4 out of 5. So first, I'm going to give you guys a little summary before I give my feelings and thoughts on some of the main points of the book. And warning that this will have some spoilers, so beware if you want to read the book and you don't want any spoilers at all. I would probably not watch this video, especially my thoughts and feelings. So just a little bit of a summary. So again, it's about Mare Barrow, a girl who is 17 years old and a red blood living in the kingdom of Norta with her parents and her younger sister Gisa. And her 3 older brothers are off at war, which has been going on for about a century, with the kingdom of the Lakelands. Now, the kingdom of Norta is ruled by King Tiberius Calor IV, who is a silver blood. And silvers have these superpowers that are considered royalty and godlike, while basically the rest of the red bloods are considered peasants. So Mare is a thief who learns that her best friend Kilorn will be conscripted, which basically means sent off to this war that has been going on for a century. So she ends up striking up a deal to escape it, but that costs a lot of money. And then the Scarlet Guard, a rebel group, bombs some silver buildings, so fear essentially begins to take hold, and the silvers grow really upset and then become worried about the reds potentially uprising. So essentially, they strike back and become even more violent against the reds to hopefully suppress them. And then some other things happen, and during what they call the Queen's Trial, which is where the silver nobility compete for the Prince Cals, so he's the oldest son of King Tiberius, for his hand in marriage. And at that event where Mare happens to be working, it is revealed that she has electrokinetic powers. And this is because she falls into the electric shield that essentially contains the arena that all these girls and these nobility are essentially showing off their powers in. And so she falls into this electric shield on accident and almost barbecues herself. But instead of dying, she lives, and she figures out that she can basically harness the power of electricity. Now, this cannot be true for a red to have abilities. So everyone is kind of shocked that this girl who has red blood can have the ability to harness electricity and have powers, essentially. So the king comes up with a plan to hide this by pretending that Mare is actually a lost silver lady, and she is forced to be betrothed to the king's second son, Maven. So then she is basically just thrust into this world of silver nobility, and during her time, Mare ends up joining the Scarlet Guard, and to her surprise, Maven, the king's second son, has as well. And they work with the guard to basically start the rebellion against the kingdom. And we found out towards the end that Mare's ability comes from a genetic mutation, and there are others like her, including her dead brother, Shade. And then, more things happen with the Scarlet Guard, bonds are broken, and basically all hell ends up breaking loose. And I don't want to go too into depth and ruin anything, but damn. The ending of this book was absolutely crazy in terms of where loyalties lie and everybody is switching sides, and at the end you basically don't know who to trust. So now I'm going to get into more of some of my feelings about this book. So this book, the vibe of this book really reminds me a lot of the Hunger Games, especially the rich and powerful capital versus the poor. It's very similar, because in the Hunger Games you have the rich capital, and then you have basically the poor slave districts. And this is essentially the same thing, except for the rich and powerful are the silver bloods with the supernatural abilities, and then the poor sort of enslaved people are going to be these red bloods who don't have abilities. And in this book we also have a young girl, Mare, who is basically inadvertently gets pushed into this life that she doesn't want, and essentially becomes, and I believe we'll see more in the future books, the symbol of the resistance. So in general, those types of things, there's just, to me, a lot of similarities between this book and probably this series and the Hunger Games in terms of the sort of symbolism and how it's structured with the rich versus poor, the poor rising up and trying to overthrow the rich and have the world become a better place, essentially. And so there's also this love triangle between Cal, Maven, and Mare. So remember, Cal and Maven are the two princes of the royal kingdom of Norta. And then Mare is basically thrust into this, and she has to be betrothed to Maven, who's the youngest of the two. But there's basically a love triangle between them where Mare essentially loves and is falling in love with both of them. Now, throughout the first, I want to say 3/4 of the book, I was not really sure which brother I actually liked and trusted. There was, between them, it was sometimes I liked them, sometimes they made really stupid decisions, and I kind of flip-flopped between which one I liked more and how I felt about them. But in general, I did like Cal the most, but some of his pride kind of gets in the way, and while I think he's trying to do the right thing for himself and his kingdom that he will eventually take over, he is just so loyal to the kingdom and the Silvers that it makes some of his decisions questionable. But overall, he seems really sweet, and I hope that he and Mare end up together, even though at the end of this book they are not really friends at all because of some of the betrayal and just the changing of the sides that happened in this book. But I really hope that maybe, hopefully in the future, they'll end up together because they'd be cute. And then Maven, at first, for the most part, I just really did not trust. I feel like there was just something about him where I was like, I don't trust you. You're trying to make yourself out to be the good guy, but I do not trust you. So there was just something that really rubbed me the wrong way about him and his personality. And then we end up finding out that he's a slimy piece of shit and basically gives the ultimate betrayal to essentially everybody. And throughout this, he likes to use the excuse that he's sort of the meek, poor, overlooked brother, I'm the second brother, no one cares about me, blah blah blah, I'm just so quiet and meek, which I kind of expected, or that's basically how he was giving himself off. And then he, in turn, became the villain. So he was, like, using that as, like, an excuse, like, oh, my brother was always better than me, and all that hoopla. So now I'm doing all this betrayal so that I can be the one in charge, and blah, blah, blah. So a lot happens with that. And I don't want to give away, like, too many spoilers or anything, so you have to read the book and get to the end to really see how this betrayal all plays out. But I just really hope that he gets wrecked as we go through the rest of the series, and hopefully he dies by Mare's hand, because screw Maven, and I hope that at some point Mare gets to kick his ass, because he is literally so psychotic and evil as of right now. So I just really hope that karma comes and bites him in the ass further along in the series. So we'll see if that plays out. I think it will, and I really hope it will, but we'll see. So, as I kind of said, the ending basically, like, flipped everything around for me. So people I thought that were dead were actually alive, and people that I thought would live and make it through a good portion of the series, possibly, and, like, be the main characters, are actually dead. And at this point, I don't know exactly how these relationships are going to evolve and who I should be believing. I don't know who exactly to trust or who has the best intentions. All I know is that as of right now, Mare has good intentions, but everyone else is basically questionable in terms of loyalties and intentions. And I'm also curious really to see how Killorn changes over the course of the series. So I keep making Hunger Games references because everything about this kind of gives me Hunger Games vibes and is kind of the same. And so Killorn, which is Mare's best friend from the Red Stilts city that she's from, so he ends up joining the Scarlet Guard. So he joins this rebel resistance. And I'm curious to see how he's going to change over the course of the series, because he reminds me a lot of Gale, as in he's like being the best friend who becomes part of the rebels and will do anything to protect his best friend, who I'm pretty sure he's secretly in love with, and they're both, like, secretly in love with each other, but we'll see if that happens. Then maybe the love triangle will switch to be between Killorn, Cal, and Mare, but I'm not sure. So now, like, Killorn, kind of like Gale, has basically become a major part of this resistance, and I'm just excited to see how his character develops and maybe changes as he gets more integrated in the story, and how he sort of maybe will bring up some plot points or things like that. So I'm really excited to see where that's going. And probably my last, like, major thought I have is that I really hope, and I think this is going to happen in the coming books, that we see more of Mare's siblings. So her sister, Giza, she was really key in the beginning of the book, and some things happened with her. And then she kind of disappeared from the series, essentially. But she's still there. So I really hope that she comes back basically stronger and better than ever. And then I hope that her brothers, especially Shade, who at first we found out is dead, but spoiler, he's actually not dead. So I really hope that her three brothers, especially Shade, really come into focus as rebels and members of this resistance. And then I hope that as a family, they can all really fight together and grow into their powers to help them fight and basically turn the world around. So that is my thoughts on the first book of the series. So remember, this is a series. This has 4 parts. So I'm going to have to read the other parts of the series, and then we'll see how far this develops. So I'm really excited to read the next book in the series, Glass Sword. So that is all that I have for you this week, but turn in soon and I will have read The Glass Sword, and we'll talk about that. We'll see where loyalties lie and what changes we may have to the plot. Thanks for watching.